Hi Year 7, Mr. Tapley here for your next lesson of Year 7 Humanities. This lesson we are bringing it home. We're looking at the livability, developing our understanding of the livability of Melbourne, the city of Melbourne. Success criteria is to identify positive and negative influences on the livability of Melbourne and well-being variances, which is a fancy word for differences. So we're looking at not just what is the well-being, the livability of Melbourne, but how it is different in different parts of Melbourne. The city of Melbourne has consistently ranked as one of the most livable cities in the world. Currently it is ranked as the second most livable city in the world. There was one point when I was in high school and university where Melbourne was the most livable city, I think it was 7 years in a row, which is pretty impressive. The Global Livability Index assesses the livability of a city across 5 categories connected to the livability factors we examined last lesson. So healthcare, education, infrastructure, so looking at roads, hospitals, police, etc., safety, and culture and environment. So 5 livability factors, 5 categories are used to assess where the most livable city in the world is. The following slides outline the 10 most livable cities in 2019. Consider the similarities and differences between these locations and what strengths and weaknesses might these cities possess. So basically, why do you believe Melbourne is considered livable? So looking at these photos, thinking about these cities, see if you can find a few similarities and differences common to livable cities. So we've got Adelaide in Australia. Mr. Tapley spent some of his childhood. Copenhagen in Denmark, which is in Europe. Tokyo, Japan. Toronto, Canada. Vancouver, Canada. One of the things I'm just going to point out that I've noticed certainly is that a lot of these big cities, they're near water, aren't they? Interesting. I'm sure that's not a coincidence. Vancouver, Canada. There's another one again. Nice mountain in the background. Calgary, Canada. Canada's doing well. Osaka, Japan. That's Osaka Castle there. Mr. Tapley's been there. Very cool to walk around. Very tiring to walk around. Sydney, Australia. Ooh. Melbourne, Australia. Take that, Sydney. I love the environment that you can see in this picture. Look at that. The 4 different seasons, 4 different colors in the trees there. Very pretty. And Vienna, Austria. Now, thinking about those cities and thinking about Melbourne, we're going to do a bit of reading in chapter 16.5 to answer the following questions. So I'll show you where 16.5 is before we look at the actual questions. So that's the textbook chapter available in Compass or Google Classroom, and it talks about the good and the bad of Melbourne. You might agree or disagree with some of these. So good coffee, you probably shouldn't know about that yet. Good schools, I would agree. Good jobs. Access to the beaches, some of the bad stuff. Cold, wet winters. Yeah. Crowded trains. Yep. Many families forced to live in the cheaper outer suburbs. So those are some livability factors influencing Melbourne. Is all of Melbourne the same? So it talks about the differences between the east, the west, the north, and the south. Some images of Melbourne. I quite like these images. Very colourful. The letters down here represent where they are. And then we've got some questions here. We're not looking at those questions though, we're looking at these ones. So, what you're doing in your digital notebook or your physical notebook, now that we're back in class. Question 1, outline the differences between the east and the west of Melbourne. So the location of a region, even within a region, even within a city, even within, our school, the location of where you are in the school is going to be very different. If you're up in the middle school building, you actually have to walk uphill, so it's located at higher ground. But anyway, the differences between the east and the west of Melbourne. So think about the climate, the weather, so which side of Melbourne gets more rain. Think about the landform, so which side is flat, which side has hills, and not mountains, but hills. Which side has more money, more jobs. So the differences between the east and the west of Melbourne. Question 2. Identify the features of Melbourne that may negatively impact the city's overall livability ranking. So why did we lose out to nasty old Vienna? We used to be good. What happened? What are some of the negative things about living in Melbourne? Question 3. Examine figure 2 on page 512. So that was the images of Melbourne that I was looking at before. This is figure 2. So you've got 6 pictures of Melbourne. What I'd like you to do with that picture, or that figure, tell me which image you believe best represents or best connects to Melbourne, and then which livability factor does it connect to. So looking at these 6 images again, sorry I keep going back and forth, which of these most reminds you of Melbourne? If you had to show someone a single picture of Melbourne to say this is what Melbourne is like, which picture would you select? And then which livability factor does that connect to? So infrastructure, if I was looking at this one, relates to, again, roads, public transport, electricity, plumbing, basically all the things you need to make a city work. If I was looking at this one, you might look at that and think of graffiti, but it's actually relating to the laneway shops in Melbourne. Very, very famous artwork, very famous laneway murals, laneway artwork. So that one would relate to art or culture. So pick which image you think relates to Melbourne, and then which livability factor it connects to. That's what you're looking at for this lesson, guys. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. Otherwise, best of luck, hope you're well, and cheers.